Hi guys, it's Jacob from Stringbuzz here, stringbuzzworld.org being the music journalism site. Links are in the description down below, and it's that time of the month again where we go over our track of the month in our track of the month segment. So it's of March 2017, as you already know. It's the end of the month, so we always do this at the end of the month, so I'm going to refer to the original article as I usually do for these videos, so I hope you enjoy. So let's face it, when it comes to mainstream music this month, it's been absolute rubbish for the most part. Yeah, it has. There have been glimmers of hope, sure, but the resounding feeling for me is that it's been a very lackluster month, kind of all round. Now, don't get me wrong, we've had tons of huge releases, and I'm glad the quantity of big releases has risen from that terrible sort of dry fortnight or so during the midway mark of February. I mean, February had very little when it came to actual releases from these big acts, but it doesn't mean the quality is any better for March, and I do think it's taken a bit of a dive. I do think March is probably one of the worst months I've had since starting the journalism site as well as the YouTube channel. And I will say that the independent music scene though has been really bringing it hard this month, and I'm glad that I have to actually make some tough calls when it comes to the best independent track, because we've had so many great releases submitted to the site. Starting with our honourable mentions for best track of the month, we'll start with Temperamental Love by BRIDGIT MENDLER featuring DEVONTEE. Just continues the great form BRIDGIT MENDLER is on at the moment. Great vocal melodies in this track, very catchy. It's this experimental, varied, urban, electronic type music she's been creating recently. As I've said, it continues her great form. The feature is fantastic as well. DEVONTEE fits very well into this mix, and had it been a minute longer or so, it probably could have been a real contender for best track of this month, but unfortunately it was a little too short for me and it capped off the potential fairly early. And then we have Swim by Her featuring Zephyr. Still know nothing about the people involved in this track and just purely stumbled upon it by accident, but a really great, almost 80s-like funk/disco track with some great bass line and bass work in general throughout the entire track. Great vocal performance as well. I'd love to hear more by the groups/projects involved, but I'd really know nothing about them, so definitely give it a listen, show some support, and I'd love to hear more. Then we have 3rd of May/Erdigara or Odigara, I always butcher the pronunciation, by Fleet Foxes. This was a surprise track that I didn't even realise was coming out this month. Luckily I'm seeing them at Latitude, sort of July I think it is, so I'm really excited for that. And this track just continues Fleet Fox's almost just stylistic presence in the experimental/folk genre. I mean, we have medieval sort of aspects in this, we have Baroque instrumentation often petering in and out of this, we have lutes in it, we have all sorts of great stuff. It's an 8-minute epic and just a really fun track to listen to, and it takes about 15 listens until you find every little nook and cranny of what has been even decorated on this track. So yeah, definitely recommend you give it a listen, especially if you're a fan of the experimental genre. It definitely trumps what Alt J have been releasing over this last month. I kind of shows them up in a fairly gloomy light, I think is the best way of putting it. And then we have The Things You Do by Ceramic. Now this is a bit of an odd one because it still stands by our rules for being entered into this track of the month, even though it came out a little while ago, but it's only had its big budget release now. I think it's been re-recorded and everything. I actually heard this live when he was supporting Jack Garrett back in November, I think it was. It might have been a little bit later from that, and it was just as good then as it is right now. Funky bass, great vocal performance as you always get with Ceramic, probably one of the best voices around at the moment. Again, performing at Latitude, excited for that. So yeah, definitely recommend you give it a listen. And this is what, the 3rd month in a row now Ceramic has released a track and is popped up in this track of the month segment. So yeah, great job. And then we have The Heart Part 4 by Kendrick Lamar. This was always going to feature in the honourable mentions, even though it's not a track I see me listening to quite as much as many other on this list. I've got to respect what was done here. It's just progressive as heck. It's like progressive rap at this point. It has jazzy sections, sections full of, say, like Rhodes type instrumentation and some retro type instrumentation, and then we have moments which are just silent in the instrumentation, and that Kendrick is just showing his chops really on this. He's just such an innovative writer, and I know a lot of people are getting fed up of this like kissing when it comes to Kendrick Lamar. But if he keeps producing tracks like this, how are other people going to keep up with him? I mean, the only person I can see still keeping up with him, especially lyrically at this moment, is Joey Badass. And I will even say that his sort of instrumentals are not up to the point of, say, Kendrick Lamar at the moment. I mean, Tyler, the Creator, could have been there, but every now and then he falters off and makes sort of gimmicky tracks, which I'm not a big fan of. And the final honourable mention for Best Track of the Month is a fairly recent one. It actually only came out today, and that's Bitter Pill by the ACACIA strain. I think I'm pronouncing that right. I'm not really into deathcore. I'm not really into doom that much, but this is a doom deathcore track which I absolutely loved. I mean, it has some great dissonant riffs in it, a really guttural and dingy sort of vocal performance which sounded great, especially over the like 15 breakdowns we had in this track. I mean, a good half of this track is just this slow tempo, big brutal breakdowns, and it just keeps hitting you over the face over and over again. And these guys are going to cause some deaths, some murders when it comes to Warped Tour. I'm incredibly frightened if people don't realise what they're getting into if they try and get into the pit at the ACACIA strain stage. Yeah, that's going to be a tasty one. But the track of the month for me has to go to Hypnotised by Coldplay. And I know what you're thinking, like, Coldplay, really? And I would have said the exact same thing last month, no doubt. I think their collaboration with the Chainsmokers was shockingly bad. And I think the last 2 years or so, they've been just releasing tripe. With all there is to their songs is just a catchy hook. And they've sort of lost that artistic integrity they had beforehand. But this track is completely different to all that. And it's a step right back in the right direction for the group, and shows that they still got what made them famous in the first place. It's one of the best tracks they've released since Magic. It's along the same lines, I'd even say, as Yellow. It's that good of a track. I gave it a 10 out of 10 for a good reason, and that's its purpose. Its purpose as a track was to be an experimental ballad with sort of heartwarming themes expressed without being too melancholy and depressing, and it did all of that perfectly. We had experimental instrumentation which often contained different timbres being thrown into the texture of the mix, and it all sounded great. We had a great vocal performance by Chris once again here. We had a great hook as usual, because at this point they're pretty darn good at writing hooks, but the rest of the track is just well balanced as well. We had many different sections and variation and decoration put on each section, and it just did its job perfectly. There was nothing I could fault on what it was intended to do. It was produced expertly as well. So when you can't really fault anything, and that you'd just be sort of looking at preference type of thing, you've got to take a step back and say, what did it hit every single check for the checklist for its intended use? And I think this song did, so I definitely recommend you give it a listen. But now to the award which everybody likes to hear about the most, and that's the worst songs. But I'm going to start with the honourable mentions as I usually do, and my god, we got a few here. So I'm going to start with Waterfall by STARGATE featuring Pink and Sia. STARGATE being a producer team, or a producer duo apparently, and it's just more of the same really. I mean, this is just a Sia track. Pink is on it for about 15 seconds or so. That's about it. She was completely wasted on this track, despite sounding probably the best on this track. And it's just another one of those really boring tracks by Sia. It's one of these empowering, independent type tracks with no real substance to it. A really shaky vocal performance with an accent which is completely fake and put on. Really boring instrumentals. It's just a nursery rhyme as well, with just verse, chorus, verse, chorus, verse, chorus, end. And it's just got nothing exciting about it at all. It was really boring track, probably the most boring track on this list. So that kind of says something. And then we have Bartender by James Blunt. I have no idea what he's thinking at the moment. He's going down like an EDM anthem type route, a bit like Linkin Park and WEEZER have been doing, which you're going to hear about a bit later in this spoiler review for that. But yeah, I'm just so fed up of this EDM anthem type feel at the moment that a lot of people seem to be going for. James Blunt's voice doesn't suit it at all, and it's just a really boring track with really cliche and cheesy lyrics that are much worse than what he's capable of doing. We've seen him do much better than this in the past, and people are sort of feeling the same way actually. In the comments section I've been noticing fans not really feeling this new sort of over-commercialised, over-produced approach, and I have to say I'm part of that. Really boring pads and textures in this song, and just completely forgettable, again with a terrible song form. And then we have Elle King, I think that's how you pronounce her name, Wild Love. That was this close to being the worst track of this month, and somehow we found another one which was even worse. I mean, this has the most fake accent I've heard all year so far anyway, even worse than Anne-Marie, which is kind of saying something since she got worst track of last month. And it's just a terrible track with terrible lyrics, boring instrumentation. It's more of your whitewashed dancehall type crap, which you've been getting hit from over here in Britain, funnily enough, over the last few months or so. And I just don't recommend anybody give it a listen, regardless of your preference. There is just nothing redeemable about this song, and that's why I gave it a 1 out of 10. In fact, the only reason I gave it a 1 out of 10, I think, is because it was mixed fairly competently. So yeah, it got 1 tick for that, but just a terrible, terrible track. And then moving on, we have I'm a Lady by MEGHAN TRAINOR. Admittedly, this was for the Smurfs film, and it did come out just before March, I think, but it narrowly missed out on the actual deadline for the last track of the month segment, and it still deserves to be on this list. It's more of your independent type crap again, and more of your just down talking men sort of stuff, and how men are they're so audacious for using manners to approach a woman. I mean, Christ, don't approach me, like, don't help me with anything, because, you know, I don't need help. I don't, honestly. Don't hold a door open for me because I can do it myself. It's all of that sort of crap and nonsense. And then moving on, we have Privacy by Chris Brown. Just a really dirty, dingy track. This is on the opposite end of the spectrum. This is a guy actually being disgusting about women. And yeah, let's not even get any further about Chris Brown when it comes to his personal life. But yeah, this song is just disgusting. It's overly sexualized, and I don't care about overtly sexualized lyrics in songs. I mean, Chris Brown has made it kind of clever in the past, but this is just gross. And the way he talks about ladies, yeah, that's not nice. That's really quite dingy, really, and the instrumentation is boring as heck as well. It started off really nicely and just went nowhere for 3.5 minutes. And then we have Still Got Time by ZAYN featuring PARTYNEXTDOOR. I can barely remember this track. All I remember about it is that ZAYN and PARTYNEXTDOOR sounded identical on the track. They added nothing from one and the other. The tempo is really slow and ploddy. Nothing changes. The only thing that does change is the dynamics. It's just louder in the choruses, quieter in the verses. Your usual nursery rhyme crap. Definitely don't recommend you give this a listen. And ZAYN is beginning to go really far downhill really fast. And then we have Feels Like Summer by WEEZER, and WEEZER, of all people, why would you do this? They went down the EDM anthem route, which we've already talked about. It's one of the better ones out of the trio, which I'm going to have mentioned here. But why? They were coming off such good form last year with an album which was consistently hitting 8s, 9s, 10s out of 10s by big critics and big independent critics as well, which is even harder to do because you can't pay them ones off. And they were, yeah, like I said, they were coming off good form, and they just decided to go down this really mundane, poppy, commercialized EDM beat route. And Rivers' voice is gross, to be honest. It's gross on this record, and I'm even struggling to find words to even say that there's some positivity about it. It's just boring. It's just really boring. There's nothing exciting about it. Not even fans of WEEZER will like this track, so it's pointless as well. And the final honourable mention, God, what a mouthful this has been, is Battle Symphony by Linkin Park, and they're going to consistently keep hitting this worst tracks sort of list, even in the honourable mentions, if they keep releasing rubbish like this. I have a feeling this brand new album is going to suck. And I know a lot of people have been sticking up for them, saying that they're changing the style. Like, they always go for a new sound on every single record, and I get that, but this isn't a new sound. This is an old sound on everybody else's terms and a new sound for the group, so it doesn't really count. I mean, this sound was popular 10 years ago, I'd say, but now sounds really outdated, cliche, and the lyrics on this track are so cheesy, and so is Chester's voice. I'm fed up of Chester thinking that his really soft, clean voice can keep carrying these epic EDM tracks, because it doesn't. It's not strong enough. The reason why he pulls in so many people and why his fans are so loyal to him is because his harsh voice is one of the best in the world, and that the juxtaposition between his soft and his harsh voice is so strong, and it makes choruses really come into fruition really nicely. But this song is just boring from start to finish. The instrumentation is boring, the progressions are boring, the melodies are boring, the lyrics are boring, and there's nothing exciting or interesting about this track at all. The worst song of the month, though, has to go to Pretty Girl by Maggie Lindemann. Yeah, I didn't know anything about this artist going into this track. The first time I listened to it, I was like, yeah, that's quite bad, but it's not terrible. But the more I've listened to it, the worse it is. I gave it a 0 out of 10 because there is nothing redeemable about it at all. As I've already said with other tracks, everything about it is boring. But this track is even more simple than a nursery rhyme. We don't even have verse, chorus, verse, chorus. We literally have chorus, transition, different type of chorus, and that's it. We have one major transition in this track, and it literally tweaks little tiny things, and it just continues basically droning on about a load of crap. The lyrics on this song have to be the worst lyrics of 2017, perhaps even of the decade. They're just more, I mean, she's being egotistical whilst trying to portray herself as not being egotistical. She wants to be down with the lads because they're all gross and grotty, and she's just a pretty girl, and everyone thinks that she's just a pretty girl, but she's more than that. But thank you for being so humble about you being so pretty. I mean, great one. I don't know whether this artist is a YouTuber or anything, but I've noticed even the support for her behind this song has been waning over the last few weeks or so since its release. Nothing exciting about it. By far the worst track of this month. I hate even talking about it. I don't want to give it any more exposure because it doesn't deserve any of it, so let's just move on. Finishing up this segment, we have Independent Track of the Month, and this has been a great little title to give because I think every single release we've actually been given in March from the independent scene has had an interesting part about it. They've all been individual and stylistic of the group, and I'm excited to see where the independent music scene goes into the next few months, into the summer in particular. I've been hearing some great things come out from many different groups, but the people that have to take the pip for me is Paint in Sound by Bad LLAMA and their EP, which came out last year, but this still qualifies for this list. A really strong song from a really strong alternative rock EP. Cannot say enough great things about this. This sounds so professional for an independent group. This track in particular had some great riffs, had some great guitar work, some great solos, a fantastic vocal performance, and these guys are going to be big. There is no doubt about it. I know I say that quite often when it comes to the independent scene, but these guys are on the right train and they're about to get off in Starville. Yeah, that's a terrible, terrible analogy. I could have thought of something better. But anyways, you get my point. Just a really strong song by a group that just keep improving. So there you have it. You have my best, my worst, the best of the independent, and all that sort of great stuff. When it comes to music in March, let's just get March behind us, I think. I'm tired of March. It's been difficult to talk about March. But there will be tracks from March which I will be revisiting when it comes to the best of the end of the year list, rather. And I'm excited for that. I think of the songs which were good here, they were really good. They were really exciting. I've listened to them on repeat throughout the entirety of March, and I suggest that you do as well. And I've had some interesting spots throughout this month. I'm glad to see that we've hit over 100 subscribers during this month. That means a lot to me as well. Obviously, we've got a gig happening next month in support of another charity, which will be great fun, and just I'm excited to see how the site, the YouTube channel, and how music progresses going into the summer. I'm super excited for this, so if you leave it a like, then I'm thankful for that. So yeah, if you like this video, then please leave a like, subscribe to see more, and I'll see you around next time. Bye bye.